Hello, what is the ARCH? The ARCH stands for INT'L Research Group and was established in June 2021 as one of the INT'L special interest groups. The vision of the ARCH is to lead collaborative rheumatology research in the Arab countries.
Our mission are based on four major pillars. First, conducting research projects. Second, supporting high-quality collaborative research among Arab countries. The third is motivating and assisting young researchers. Last, to connect with international rheumatology research teams. But what about our teams? Who are we? We are 16 voting members representing 16 INT'L countries. We have been assigned by our society to represent our country in ARCH group.
The first axis of the ARCH is about project leadership. The ARCH will lead research projects in the INT'L countries with the objective of serving the interests of the patients with rheumatic diseases. Any project corresponding to this team can be presented to the ARCH and will go through an internal standard operating procedure. Priority will be given to collaborations between multiple INT'L countries. Also, the project needs to be in harmony with the ARCH's values: excellence, ethics and integrity, education, motivation, and teamwork.
The ARCH offers counseling for and supporting young Arab researchers who wish to conduct their own project. The ARCH will support researchers in research methodology, data management, and other services, including medical writing till publication.
The third axis of the ARCH is about educational activities. The ARCH will organize workshops to improve research skills among INT'L members with a special focus on a young researcher. The workshops will be planned at the beginning of each year and target the general themes of research methodology, statistics, medical writing, and publication. We conducted a survey to identify the educational need of the rheumatologists in the Arab countries, and we have planned an exciting series of webinars with eminent speakers for the upcoming year.
We come into the fourth axis of ARCH, visibility and networking. We aim to connect all rheumatologists across the Arab world to conduct their researches, as well as link you to pharmaceutical companies who are actually running global trials. We are visible on social media on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, and you can find us on #ARCH_INT'L. If you are interested and you would like our support in doing your research, please do not hesitate to contact us on the email address shown below.
On behalf of all the ARCH members, we are all looking forward to working with you on exciting research projects. Don't forget to follow the ARCH activities on social media following the #ARCHIRLAR. Thank you.
مساء الخير. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Before I start, I'd like to say thank you to Dr. Manal Al-Ragawi, Dr. Imad Uthman, and of course to Dr. Nelly Ziada for the nice invitation to moderate this session. It's always a pleasure to be part of INT'L educational and academic activities. I believe that today's session will be quite interesting. We'll be discussing advancing rheumatology research through artificial intelligence. It's a new topic. There is a lot of dilemma and debates about it. We do have an eminent speaker with us who is really expert in this field. Would like to welcome Dr. Diego Benebant, who is a rheumatologist at University Hospital in Barcelona. He obtained his master's degree in artificial intelligence and data analysis sciences. As well, he's about now to defend his PhD in axial SPA. He's ASAS group member as well as OMERACT member. So I believe that you will enlighten us today about artificial intelligence and how we can implement it and use it in rheumatology. Please all, if you have any questions, drop it in the Q&A, and we'll be having Q&A session for 10 minutes after Dr. Benebant finish his speech. Please.
Welcome everyone to this webinar. I would like to thank the INT'L Research Group for this kind invitation to talk about advancing rheumatology research through artificial intelligence. So now that I'm getting close to my paternity leave, I sometimes get to think about how I will explain my future child how the world works, but not metaphysically, not philosophically, but real things. How are things in the physical world? For example, let's make an exercise. Let's imagine that we want to a child. What is a chair? So we would probably explain them that a chair is an object with 4 legs that serves to sit down. And then we will think, okay, now we know what a chair is for our child. However, we might go to the street and see something that fulfills our definition, but however, is not a chair, such a bench that is an object with 4 legs that serves for sitting down. However, we will then create another rule and explain the child that normally a chair serves for 1 person. And then we will think that our child knows what a chair is, except that we will go to another place and we will see something that does not fulfill the definition of a chair. Probably then we will realize that the human mind doesn't work like that. We do not learn from fixed rules and then interpret reality, but the other way around. We interpret the reality and we get the rules from this reality. And that is basically the difference between a medical student who really studies a book and tries to apply it, and a resident or a rheumatologist that learns from the experience, from examples, and from these examples, we extract the rules. And this principle is key to really understand the very big thing that is going on in the computational world with AI. More than 50 years ago, computational researchers realized that there is a way that computers learn from experience, not only from fixed rules that if we do this, this happens, but rather from experience and from examples, rather getting information from this example to create their own rules. And that's how the artificial intelligence, wondering how computers could somehow replicate human thinking, human intelligence, that's how it all emerged with different strains like machine learning or deep learning. And this has been through our talks in medical literature for some years now, basically with functions that go from classification to prediction. Basically, some years ago, we realized that AI can distinguish features, basically what we do in diagnosis, or it can also anticipate the timeline, basically what we do in risk scores. And you probably are aware of many medical studies that emerged some years ago, particularly from ophthalmologists that developed algorithms to identify diabetic retinopathy even better than ophthalmologists. Not only that, but this algorithm could predict cardiovascular risk factors, something that had not been done before. But the real big thing started later. Ophthalmologists realizes that this algorithm can not only diagnose, can not only predict cardiovascular risk, but can develop skills that ophthalmologists did not have, such as identify males and females through their eye fundus, or even predict the risk of Alzheimer's disease, of Parkinson's disease. And this is getting more and more bigger and bigger every year. And we are now seeing prospective validation algorithms that are already being implemented in different hospitals. So we thought that we were mastering this, that we already knew what this AI was about, and we were winning the game. Until 30th November 2022, when ChatGPT appeared, and it changed the game, because we realized that there are algorithms that do not only classify, not only predict, that they can also create. And that's how generative AI emerged, a whole new world of creation that is really changing society. And now we also have this whole new world of generative AI, which can generate text, generate images, or generate video from a sole sentence. And of course, with this generative AI, we are changing the shape and the future of medicine, both with the discriminative AI and with the medical generative AI, for drug discovery, for helping as a decision support tool, for helping as a virtual health assistant. But both for generative AI and discriminative AI, we need data to train this algorithm, these experiences, these examples we talk about. And data can come in different shapes. They can come from structured databases, for example, databases, as you all know, with different patients in rows and different variables in columns. But it can also come from free text, or it can also come from images, which at the end of the day, every pixel can be a numerical data in a database. And actually, talking about imaging, we have seen a bunch of studies in the last years. Many studies in the field of ophthalmology, radiology, or dermatology, some of them which are applicable to rheumatology. For example, now that I'm having a psoriatic arthritis clinics, I'm trying to do the PASI score, which I realized my reliability can improve quite a lot. So I thought, okay, maybe a machine can also do this. And indeed, there was this study in which an AI algorithm was compared to different physicians, and it was seen that the reliability, that the total agreement between the AI and the physician was quite good, with only 2.5 PASI points of differences. But the interesting thing is not this. The interesting thing is that when we try to tell the physicians that they did the score in different moments to tell their inter-rater reliability, it was quite lower than the intra-rater reliability of the machines, meaning that the reproducibility of the algorithms was quite higher than the reproducibility of the humans in this case. And algorithms like this are getting us the opportunity to get software such as this one that is freely available in the internet, and we can upload photo. For example, this is a photo I found on the internet, and you can input it and it can calculate for you the PASI. And in fact, more and more hospitals are incorporating algorithms such as this one in their clinical practice. For example, in the clinic hospital in Barcelona, they have now a machine which is called Vectra, which is more or less like a CT scan, in which the patient gets inside and it can calculate the PASI score on can look for melanoma in the patients automatically by a deep learning algorithm. And in fact, we have been talking about deep learning and imaging for many years now, because as you see, since 2010, the computer vision started to develop. But interestingly, in this diagram, you can see that there are many pale blue dots in the last 2 years corresponding to language, because indeed, what we have seen exploding in the last 2 years is the ability to compute of computers to understand language, which is called natural language processing. But if we put it in steroids or in anabolizants, we get the large language models that we have seen now in many facets of the society. So we are trying to get to the basics, like very high level, just to see how this model works. Basically, they try to get the information from a text to get it to a database. And how did they do it? Basically, they get a number that a computer scientist call vector for each word. And therefore, the computer starts somehow to locate each word in a different semantic field. Why? Well, at the beginning, they started to get what we call back of words. So if the word appeared in another sentence, for example, arthritis, we will know that it will get the number 5, psoriasis, the number 11, and the computer will start to get a hint of what it was all about. But the real change came in 2017 with a paper of Google called Attention is All You Need, that really located every word in different semantic field. And therefore, erosion in dermatology had not the same vector as erosion in ophthalmology or erosion in rheumatology. And of course, a very different vector number of erosion in geology. So basically, what these models do is looking in the semantic field for words to locate it. So imagine the vector probably between a queen and man is kin. The vector between arthritis and psoriasis is probably psoriatic arthritis, because they learn from their environment. And they not only learn from their environment, but they try to predict the next word based on all the things they've learned. For example, if we had in a clinical story record, or saying it otherwise, if ChatGPT, we asked it, write a physical examination for me of this patient, if we've seen a patient that had pain in the wrist, we will say the patient presents with arthritis in the, there will be many different words that in the whole internet appears after arthritis in the. But for this specific case, in which the patient had pain in the wrist, the algorithm probably will choose with arthritis in the wrist. And this is basically what large language models do. Predict the next word based on statistical probability of the corpus in which they have learned everything. Well, and you may start to wonder, okay, this seems very nice. This is quite tough also to understand, but why and how can I use it for? Well, indeed, the interesting thing about this is that we can actually use it for many things now in medicine. We can use language models to generate tests, or to summarize tests, or even to reply to answers. Let's see some examples, because you probably have already tried to play around with ChatGPT. Most of you at the beginning, we all start saying, for example, write a story for me, write a poem for me, and then we start to realize that it may serve to many duties of our daily life. Actually, there is a study published in Science in which 450 different specialists in different fields, not only medicine, but in different fields, develop writing tasks. And they were aleatorized to use ChatGPT, randomized to use ChatGPT or not to use ChatGPT. And it was yelled that the people that was randomized to use ChatGPT made the task 40% better in 20% less time. And not only that, they did it with a substantial higher level of satisfaction. So you can imagine that we can not only use ChatGPT to write poems, but also to use it in research. For example, to get ideas for a protocol, to get ideas for a title, to tell it to give us a structure of the protocol. to help us with the medical writing of the protocol. If we go to the statistical analysis, it can also help us. And here there is an important step in which tools like ChatGPT can help us with the code. They can provide us the code to do an analysis that we can then replicate in our environment, such as in R or Python. And not only that, it can also do the analysis itself for us. We have to bear into account that if we ask analysis to be done by ChatGPT, for example, we should always replicate it in another environment because of the limitation that we will see later. Not only that, it can help us a lot with medical writing. For example, giving it some results and asking to build a first structure of the writing. We will see more examples and also some of the drawbacks and limitations later. And one of the drawbacks that you may have heard is that, yeah, ChatGPT, but it can really hallucinate and create references that do not exist. And for this drawback, there are some different tools such as Elicit, Consensus, or Research Rabbit that have been created. And I would like to bring you some of the examples that how we could use these tools nowadays that are freely available. For example, Elicit, it aims to explore the scientific literature. And for example, we can ask for a very specific question, congestive heart failure in lupus, and it will create a summary of the articles that we choose. And not only that, it will list the articles and it will list a summary of each of them. And we could create a column, a tailored column of anything that we want to look for in the articles. Not only the columns that are pre-specifically created, but we could create a natural language column. For example, I realized that there were mostly clinical cases, and therefore I asked for onset symptoms in these clinical cases. And there you can see how it looks in every article for the symptoms. Let's think about that and how it can help us in doing systematic reviews or at least scoping reviews and how much time it can help us save. Consensus is a different search engine, but this is also tailored for research, basically to try to discern in difficult questions. I use it mostly for fields in which I do not have so much knowledge, and it can give me an input on the state of the art. For example, let's ask a kind of difficult question. If I can use methotrexate for axial involvement in spondyloarthritis, this is an easy question for a rheumatologist that is devoted to spondyloarthritis, but it can be a challenging question for a GP. Well, it gives you the answer. It tells you that mostly no, the literature says mostly no. However, there is almost 1/3 of the articles that supports this idea. And when you go and look which articles and how do they support this idea, well, they say that methotrexate reduces the immunogenicity and ameliorate the pharmacokinetics of adalimumab. It can indeed ameliorate the the use of some biologics in axial spondyloarthritis, and therefore we could use it in patients with axial spondyloarthritis added to a biological drug. These two cases, Elicit and Consensus, are basically cases to generate information by summarizing literature. But there are different ways also to summarize not only literature, but also information from electronic health records. And here I had the opportunity to start collaborating 4 years ago with Savannah, which is a company that actually works with natural language processing to discern the meaning of each word in their context. And therefore, we understand that AF can mean antifungal or atrial fibrillation, depending on the context. And therefore, we get the structured database to make data, to get the information from different hospitals and transform it into a structured database to get all the insights. For example, we can do it in rheumatology, for which we analyze 64 million electronic health records. Imagine 64 million, how much time it will take to all RLR to analyze this. Well, we did it to explore the patients with RA and also with ILD to look for the intersection and get to know that there were 712 patients with RA, ILD in these 9 hospitals that were screened. And then we could extract this cohort to analyze different socio-demographic, clinical characteristics, prevalence, or even mortality of these patients. Since that the patients with RA-ILD had a higher burden of disease than the patients with RI without ILD. We have also done it in the field that I'm most devoted to, which is axial spondyloarthritis, in which we explore all the patients with axial spondyloarthritis and psoriatic arthritis in 3 different hospitals to extract the clinical characteristics and also the outcomes, realizing that the use of outcomes is probably not very high in the Spanish setting, with 1 out of 3 patients reporting ASDAS with axial spondyloarthritis. And then you may wonder, okay, this is fine, but how do you know that this information is reliable, that is valid, that we can really be, that it can really be trusted? Well, for this, we do a validation process in which the information in the electronic health records is annotated by 3 different or 2 or 3 different clinicians, and this gold standard is contrasted with the output of the machine. And we do this for the main variables of the study, seeing the precision, the recall, which is basically the sensitivity and specificity of the variables, and the F1 scores, which give us a weighted probability of this variable reporting what we want to see. And as you see, most of the variables are over 0.7, which is considered to be good. As I mentioned, large language models can summarize tests, can generate tests, but they can also reply to questions. And the ability of language models on this task has been increasingly better and better. In 2020, they got around 1/3 or 1 out of 4 questions of the USMLE, the United States American exam, the correct answer. Well, now in March 2024, the best language model, which we call a state-of-the-art language model, which has reported to be Gemini, had 9 out of 10 questions of the USMLE correct. Imagine 9 out of 10. These are not easy questions. And I can tell you this because this exercise has been done also in the Spanish exam with the rheumatology questions in particular. Not only the accuracy, but also the clinical reasoning, which has been rated by different clinicians. And imagine how many questions do you think that ChatGPT has correct in the mirror exam, which is quite tough, I can tell you, even for rheumatologists. Well, the reality is that it got 94% of the questions correct. And not only it got the correct answer, the median rating of the evaluators was 4.7, with most of the raters giving 5 points to most of the questions. Imagine how good it can get. And it can get so good that in a paper published 2 weeks ago, you can see that it can help us to diagnose in clinical practice. To be honest, I have also ChatGPT open in the back of my consultation, not so much to help me as an oracle, because it can really deceive you, but rather to support me with interactions of drugs, or even to do bureaucratic tasks, always with anonymized data. But there are examples such as this, in which you input an X-ray to a model, and then it tells you what are the different signs that you can see in the X-ray. It can even do the report for you, saying that there are mild degenerative changes that are in the lower thoracic spine, which for me is quite impressive, because I'm not sure I would have said this up front. If I look for it, I realize that there are degenerative changes, and then it says in the anterior margin of the vertebral bodies. I will say in the lateral margin, but still, I think it's quite impressive to get this. So again, we are starting to think that we are winning the game, that everything is going very smoothly. And it's precisely at this point that we should really be considering the different shortcomings and the different pitfalls and the risks of these tools, because there are many. We've seen that they are impressive and they are probably going to change the way we do medicine and we do rheumatology. But however, there are many different risks. One of them is the risk of the training, because the training and the output will not get better of the than the quality of the data. And to illustrate this, I will bring this example of a study that, well, after many studies of dermatologists showing that an algorithm can diagnose a melanoma better than dermatologists, there was this group that published in JAMA that there was a little which was important for the algorithm to diagnose the melanoma. It was indeed that it was marked. If the benign lesions were marked by this ink, the algorithm had 40% more false positive, thinking that the algorithm has learned from a characteristic that is not intrinsic from the lesion, but rather from the ink. And this bias can affect to any type of AI. The AI may get characteristics that is not what we want them to learn, but they will learn from this experience. And in this sense, we need also to be very cautious because the AI can have seemingly brilliant ideas that are not so, or it can what we call hallucinate. It can create material that is not really valid because it doesn't have accountability and it really cannot reason as we do. And if we are not careful with this, we can ask them to create an image, for example, for the jack-stack pathway, and get an image such as this one, or get an image for an article that is very nice looking, but indeed has nothing valid. For example, as you see in the image of the rat, the letters do not make sense at all. And therefore, we may get things like this, because as I say, even though the artificial intelligence, the generative artificial intelligence may seem very logic, also in the test with the replies, it may provide information that is not really valid. For example, in this example, we try to fool the artificial intelligence by saying 2 + 5. My wife says it's 8, and then it says, no, your wife is wrong. And then you say, my wife is always right. And then the free ChatGPT, which before it was trained and up to 2021, it gets fooled by this, and it says, okay, then you are probably right. 2 + 5 equals to 8. And because of this, because of the hallucinations, we need to be very careful with the output of the models, both in imaging and in tests. We should always review the information that we get from these algorithms. Because if we do not review them, there are some cases that can arise, such as in these articles that are published now, in which they basically copy-pasted from ChatGPT, and they saw that there are different output that the ChatGPT yielded. So that certainly here is a possible introduction for your topic, and they weren't careful enough to review the article so that that was not in the manuscript finally. So there is an important additional step whenever we use AI, that is critical think about what we say, because we cannot blame ChatGPT. ChatGPT has no blame on what we have. We are accountable of everything. And this is basically one of the major changing paradigms that is coming, that the change in mind that we should get, because there are many people that say, okay, this is very frightening, it's gonna replace us, it's gonna change everything. Well, it will definitely change many things, but in my opinion, it will not replace doctors, and it will not replace and many of the activities that is now supporting. There are many different arguments for this, but for me, the main one is that we understood at the beginning of the talk that these algorithms learn from experience, and this experience comes from us. So if we are not there to keep teaching these algorithms, they will not keep learning. They will reach a high level, but they will never get better, and we always want to get better every day in every way. And this is how medicine in this is evolving, and this is probably what we will see in the coming year. We will see predictive models being developed, that we are already starting to see some of them in the major rheumatology journals to anticipate the timeline. We will see how we can enhance our activity with generative AI. We can get better models, we can do a statistical analysis, we can be more productive, both in our research and in our clinical practice. And we will even get to hospital database in which all the information is merged and reach what we call today the multimodality, in which we use information from electronic health records, information from medical imaging, information from tests, or even information from a speech that hopefully in some years will be integrated to free doctors from the computers and to keep reshaping medicine in the good way, in the way we want to make us every day, in every way, better and better using AI as our company. Thank you very much for your attention.
Very interesting, but scary, Dr. Benevent. You stated very clearly that artificial intelligence is not going to replace doctors. But from what you presented, I'm really highly doubting that sentence. If we have a ChatGPT able to write a protocol, tell us what to do, write a paper for us, do everything on our behalf, don't you think that realistically that artificial intelligence might affect many jobs in the medical field?
Thank you very much, Dr. Fuad, for this very kind invitation and also for your question. Indeed, I'm pretty sure that it will affect society in general and medicine in particular concerning jobs. But I think we will have to rethink the way of working so that we can be more effective using AI rather than being defeated by AI, because it's not let's say a fight against AI. It's a tool that we have that we can use in the way we want to modulate to make better medicine. So if doctors, it's us who make the best of this AI, I really believe that we will get to some very good point with it. However, as we discussed, there are some very ethical issues that we should consider to this. And the first of them is that, we make things that are not reliable. And this is one of the first steps in which, so far, at this moment in history at least, we are necessary to validate the information from artificial intelligence. Because even so, if it seems very reasonable and very valid, it can be totally nonsense at this moment because of the way it works, at least generative AI I'm talking about. So at this point, for validation, it will be totally necessary to have doctors. Then another area that so far we are quite far in computation is the humanistic area. Even though if there are some studies, for example, a JAMA study that shows that ChatGPT can be more empathetic in chats than doctors, the reality is that humans, we need human contact. We need someone that is there to listen to us rather than a machine. I still am quite doubtful that chatbot could really ever be like a psychologist in the whole. However, they could have some support for people, and I'm sure. And in that same way, I think they could support us in every way. For example, for getting out the work that is basically bureaucratic and getting more time for us to focus on the very important things that we have to do.
Okay, you raised actually two important points that causing a lot of dilemma about artificial intelligence. First, you tackle the accuracy of the data and quality of the data we can get from artificial intelligence. Clearly, you stated that it will require validation, for which we will need a physician input. But Let's put in mind that when we obtain a data for artificial intelligence related research, we are using different platforms, and the accuracy of the data or the data we are getting from different platforms might be fragmented from one institute to another. So it doesn't matter how much the input from human beings or physicians, is still the data quality that we obtain from artificial intelligence is still debatable and require probably further research to ensure that we are getting a good quality of data. The second point that you raised, which is really quite important, is lacking of empathy. Whenever we are doing a research, there should be an interaction between physicians and whoever is subjected to a research, which we are lacking over here. And this will highlight as well that artificial intelligence probably might not reflect the real world practice or real world data. And I'll be wearing two hats now. In addition to my role as a rheumatologist, I'm as well a chairman of the Research Ethics Committee at our Ministry of Health and Prevention, which is a federal health institute in UAE. And honestly, I actually declined number of research about artificial intelligence for a very huge concern from the RIC perspective. The respect of confidentiality and the security of data. Can we please emphasize on this point how we can overcross the security of the data and the confidentiality of our patients' data in artificial intelligence?
Thank you, Dr. Schwartz, for this question. Indeed, it's a very important matter that you perfectly know from your position. At this point, I believe we are entering in many gray zones, and many times I ask myself questions that then I try to investigate, and I see that the answer is not clear. For example, to what extent can we input information to an AI algorithm, even if they say that they will not learn from the data, and this information is pseudonymized? So I think there are questions that are not clear, but what is clear to me is that in this moment that we still don't know many of the future implications, we need to be careful in this regard. So an important point is that data to be input in any AI algorithm should always at least be pseudonymized, which means that does not have any data that makes it directly identifiable to the, I mean, for example, to give a fake name and a fake birth ID to a patient that has nothing to do with their name. That's a pseudonymization, or even a step further, which is anonymization, which will mean to delete data. There are different techniques for this. There is, for example, one called natural privacy, in which in big data sets, we make artificial intelligence to make small errors in individual patients, so that if we try to follow an individual patient without knowing obviously their name or their birth date or anything, still it will not correspond to what we know. For example, it will describe myself as a man, 34 years old, and then from Italy, and I'm from Spain, and therefore it will not correspond, and I will not be identifiable. So there are techniques such as this in which we can think on how we can anonymize the data, but still, I have to admit that, to my knowledge, there is still an important way to go, and many challenges that needs to be discussed by people like you in the committees, so that we get a clearer pathway in where we can move forward.
Hopefully in the near future. The more you explain it, the more questions actually come to my mind. You stated that the algorithm is a data that you train the software on. This will bring another concern. As long as the software are trained on certain data that we feed the software with, wouldn't that bring us to a data bias?
Yeah, indeed, definitely. And that's one of the, before generative AI arrived, like 4 years ago or so, or even before, but to the society, it was also one of the biggest concern of AI, because where we train a data, in the data set we train some algorithm, is what they learn. Basically, I sometimes think as a resident that trains in a hospital, and maybe he can only perform well in this hospital. And then if we take this resident to another hospital, will they perform well? And the problem with many algorithms is that they perform very well in their hospital, they perform very well with their data set, and then the external validation is not correct. And that's an important topic raised by all the checklists on AI. For example, the tripod AI focuses a lot on the importance of external validation. It's a proxy to know that the algorithm is not so biased, but even so, we can get bias because the algorithm learn by what we but by the data itself, and even the full data set in the world may be biased. And that's why, for example, when we ask ChatGPT to create a doctor, it usually creates a male. When we ask ChatGPT to create a nurse, it usually creates a woman because it's biased by the data it has on the internet. And therefore, we need to be careful both in the training data and also in the output, because in many cases we should supervise this output that we get.
Honestly speaking, I have too many questions for you, but we have less than a minute to finish. So I will read a question being posted by Dr. Ziada. So let me close with this question. Are you aware of any data using artificial intelligence to conduct a statistical analysis of a study?
Any system to conduct a statistical analysis of a study?
Yes,
that's
artificial
correct?
intelligence to conduct a statistical analysis.
Actually, ChatGPT itself, in the version before until yesterday, in the paid version, but from today in the free version, because they are releasing the ChatGPT 4 from an OpenAI release, it conducts a statistical analysis quite impressively. You can input a database and they can get for you graphics and so on. However, there we have the risk of the data. So far, there is a very important gray zone that we should not input patient data into a platform such as ChatGPT. So if we have a small data set with a small statistical analysis that we want to get help on, we can use ChatGPT, ask them to give us the code, and even to perform the statistical analysis for us. But my recommendation is to always replicate it in our platform.
There you are, Dr. Ziada. You can use ChatGPT for statistical analysis. Unfortunately, we have only 10 minutes allocated for Q&A. Probably, and I hope that we can meet in any other session, because I still have a long list of questions for you regarding artificial intelligence, but I have to stick to the 10 minutes being allocated for us. Dear all, thank you very much for being with us. We are highly appreciated for Dr. Benabent for being with us, enlightening us about a new topic in advancing research or rheumatology. Yes, artificial intelligence is a new topic, but personally, I believe that we are taking our first few steps in this field, but any long journey starts with very first slow few steps. So who knows what's the future of artificial intelligence? It might replace us all as physicians. We never know. Thank you very much for all of you. Thank you, Arlar. Thank you very much for all the people behind the scene who helped with making this activity being accessible to all of you. Thank you so much and have a good night.